Hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us. I'm going to start really promptly today because we have a lot to get through. And hello and welcome to this Unleashing the Power of Microsoft Copilot 365 webinar. As you've probably all seen, Copilot is everywhere at the moment from Microsoft. And the aim of our presentation today is to really go through with you some of the key features, some things you should be thinking about, and cover some of the other pieces that you're all probably got in your mind. So without further ado, my name is James Dell, and I'm Head of Technical Architecture and Associate Director at Planet IT. And I've got the pleasure today of being joined by Stephen Harper from Arrow, who leads the team over there and is a specialist in all things Microsoft and 365. And we're really lucky to have today to talk to you about Copilot because it's so new and it's, everything's changing so quickly. So it's great to have him with us. I am obliged to do this because it's a Planet webinar. For many of you, you know who we are and you've seen us before. But for those of you who are joining who've never heard of Planet IT, we are that one-stop shop for all things IT. So everything from outsourced IT security through to professional services, phone systems, connectivity, Microsoft, and all those related items. We are your go-to for all those things, and we're here to help essentially. Just like today, we're here to offer you any advice and guidance we can to guide you towards the right solutions for your business. And ultimately, we have done this for 20 years now, and we're trusted by a number of household and national names. You may well see your logo up there. And if you do, thank you very much for working with us. We continue to be really proud of the customers we support and have supported over the last 20 years. And I think Copilot 365 is the next part of that journey. Now, I'm going to go very quiet for a little while and hand over to Stephen, who's going to walk you through the content. So I'll see you the other side of it.
Right. Hi. Thanks for that intro, James. So not here to talk about myself, so make life really easy for me. Thank you. So first slide, well, let's just do a 1-second intro. Why not? So I'm the head of pre-sales for Arrow ECS, and we work very closely with Planet IT. So very much hand in hand in supporting Planet's licensing and reselling capability. So straight into M365 Copilot then. So first thing just to draw your attention to is this is a bit like a brand Copilot. So Microsoft have launched a number of different Copilots, and they are in various different states as we talk about this today. So we're going to be talking to you today about Microsoft 365 Copilot, but if you are using or interested in the other Copilots, then please reach out to James and team, and hopefully, they'll be able to talk you through some of these. But as I said, some of these aren't actually released yet, like the security Copilot, but they're coming, and as and when we'll talk to you more about these in the future. So first of all, really welcome, and I suppose what we're looking at here is let's give you a bit of a story, a bit of a scene. So going back to last year, Microsoft introduced Copilot into their Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And really what we're talking to you today about is this Copilot being an AI assistant for you to use at work. So today we've got really, really exciting news to share with you. And I suppose, the most exciting news is Microsoft telling us, and this is brand new to absolutely everybody out there, is that, it's now available for any customer type in any segment to buy, so across corporate, education. So yeah, doors are open for anybody who's really interested and wants to know more about this. Go and have a chat with the Planet team after the session, and they'll fill you in. Okay, so let's start at the bottom. Really, with the site products, is really important we understand how so Copilot is going to work with your customer data set. So what we'll want to do is clarify and validate its functionality and how it's going to address these challenges. So as I said already today, this is now out, it's full what we call GA, so general release. So it's gone through testing, it's gone through development. It also went through a wave of release for large enterprise customers. So I'm happy to share a bit later with you some insights from those enterprise customers and how they've been using it and their feedback over the last 3 or 4 months. So we'll get onto that in a while. I won't talk about price. That's really not what I'm here to do. I'll let James and the team talk to you about price, but what I will talk to you about a bit later is, prereqs, can you buy it, that type of thing. So I'll cover that in a while. I think first thing to do is introduce a few things behind the scenes before we start to look at how you can use Copilot. What I want to do is just say, let's look at what it's made up of. So behind the scenes, what we've got is we call it a large language model. So many people might not know what this is. So let's try and break this down really simply. So most people would have heard of something like ChatGPT. So what sits behind ChatGPT is a large language model. And really what that is like a bunch of information and data that organization uses to put into ChatGPT, so they train it based on your information to make that all really good and hopefully, really useful to you as a customer. So what we have here with Microsoft is not ChatGPT. It's completely different to that, but we've got a pre-trained, I should say, large language model that Microsoft has put together to work with your customer, your data set within your Microsoft 365 tenant. And that's the important distinction here is that when we come to look in security in a minute, you're going to find out a little bit more about how we secure these environments, how it is really different from some of these public services. Also behind the scenes of your tenant today, if you're using Office 365 or Microsoft 365 services, then this is already there, apart from the Copilot enablement piece. So within the back end of a M365 tenant is something we call Microsoft Graph and also a Microsoft Security Graph. But what this does is think of a web of different bits of data. And if you think, a single bit of data, how do we say, what's in that data? How do we know who has access to that data? So this is what the Microsoft Graph is going to do for you. It does it automatically behind the scenes. So it knows who has access to what. It knows about the data and a little bit about what we would say is the metadata about that. So think of it as a web of information that you use today already. So this is nothing new. It's just the way in which Copilot is going to help service that information back to you when we get to show you more about it in a minute. We then also have what we call the M365 apps. So obviously you're used to using Office products today, like Office 365, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of those apps. So Copilot is going to work with what we call the M365 apps, and it's going to give you that additional layer of what we call prompting. So when we play some intros in a while, you'll see that how it works and how you can use prompting to interact with that application to get that application to do something for you. Then, of course, on the right-hand side of your screen, you see obviously the internet. So, if you want to surface information to help you, like build a presentation, the Copilot will use your internal company information data that you have, but you might want it to go out on the internet to find out, other things about building that presentation, maybe other graphics and things like that. So it's got these four components sat behind the scenes, really. And just to say, to finish off on certainly this slide here is, what does it work with? Is out of the box, it's going to work with your M365 apps for business and apps for enterprise, which really means under the hood, it's going to work with your Microsoft Word, your Excel, your PowerPoint, your Outlook, and your Teams. Okay, so if we're moving on now, so let's talk a little bit about security, and I won't go into the ins and outs of absolutely everything because you might be here all day, but how does it really work? So starting on the left-hand side of the screen, everything that you do with inside your Microsoft 365 tenant, pre-Copilot, or even when you add Copilot in, everything should be secure. So what we're talking about here is great compliance and governance standards that you might want to apply to your data. So, for example, if you're used to having a wide open, like a file share on premise, good practice within your Microsoft 365 tenant is to really think about how you organize that data and how you secure that data. So obviously, data is very important, and it's your responsibility as an organization to make sure you're not accidentally leaking that data. So, for example, we have PII, GDPR, and other compliance standards that we know, within the UK we need to apply to. But on top of that, organizations might have their own internal standards, as well as other regulatory controls and standards that you need to apply to. So hence why, as part of what we're talking about here, it is really important to have that data conversation to make sure that, the right people have access to that data just to do the job that they need to do, and maybe not wider access to other data that, isn't in line with their job. Because the more we hone in on this and the more we look at data and security, probably the more you're going to get out of Copilot, because the better the experience it is going to be. Now, I know James has got some really exciting news for you guys a bit later on when I wind up my piece to talk to you about what Planet IT can do in this area by working with you to look at that, okay? And then as we come into it, let's talk a little bit about how this is going to work. I do have a little bit of a video coming up in a short while where we'll talk about security and how it's going to, give your users access to only the data and only that, information they have access to, and not share company secrets and things like that. So that's a question often, we're going to be asked is, oh my God, this world of AI, how do we control, access to data? Well, I'll play that out rather than talk through all of that. And then that pillar on the right-hand side, responsible AI. So everybody's talking about AI today, and it can mean lots of things to lots of people. Obviously, AI is part of M365 Copilot, but AI could also be talked about in terms of you building your own AI, and such as like websites and things like that. Different topic from what we're going to talk to you about today. But again, if you have any needs around AI, come and surface them up with James and the team. And I know they're very, proficient in talking about these types of different topics. Okay, if you are interested in about Microsoft and their responsible AI, which is why I've got this little pin up here on the right-hand side of the screen, is that, it's public knowledge what Microsoft is doing and how they drive responsible AI. In actual fact, they're one of the pivotal founders in trying to drive responsible AI and ethics through the whole of the AI industry. So their guidelines are out there and for anybody to follow. And if you're interested, again, please reach out after the session. Okay, so as we've just alluded to, AI does run on trust. And trust has really been a fundamental promise Microsoft has been making to all of their customers. If you don't trust them with your Office 365 data, then Copilot isn't probably going to be for you. So I think having that good knowledge and foundation of trust, it's already been, there. But again, please reach out if there are any considerations or concerns, especially if you run some type of, governance that you're not sure about, whether it maps into Microsoft as a data provider and that type of thing. So again, we can share all that information back to you of how they do their bit and how you need to control your side of it. So it's all black and white. I would say it's all easy to talk about. So there are a few fundamental promises that we're going to make, from a Microsoft viewpoint. We've already said, first of all, the data inside of your Microsoft tenant, it's exactly that. It's your data. It's not owned, managed, and controlled by Microsoft. It's completely up to you. They're not sharing any of this information. And more importantly, when we talk about Copilot, if you think about something like a third-party GPT, I won't say the full name, but we know that when you put something into that third-party service with this other organization, they use your data to train their model, which means your information could be accidentally exposed out on the internet. The fundamental pillar of Copilots within the Microsoft Cloud is that your data is exactly that. It's your data. Microsoft will not use your data in any way to train any of these Copilots or any of these large language models. And it's also, therefore, up to you how you want to use Copilot. So do you want information to be accessed by Copilot? You can stop Copilot from working with certain information if you want to. At the same time, we can also then talk about how we secure Copilot as well. So only the right people within inside or even outside of your organization can only see the data that you want to surface. So that's probably enough about some security bits. Let's run on to some feedback, if I may. So a bit earlier, I talked about early adoption, and I'd say these like large, I'd say very large customers out there, because I know how Microsoft works in these cases. They've launched this already some months ago with like 10,000 base user companies. So some of that feedback, I'm not going to talk through all that feedback here on the screen, but as you can see, I'll pick up one or two things. For me, what's been really interesting is some stats like when you start to use Copilot, we're already getting signals back from some of these very large customers, is that if, say, someone wants to leave that organization and go to work for another organization, it's already got to the point, even after a few months of use, where someone would consider either buying Copilot licenses for themselves, which I do find quite unbelievable. Hey, but we'll take this as feedback from what we're seeing here. But also, people would also not consider working for an organization, without Copilot. So again, some great information and feedback. But I think the most important story or conversation to have here is like, that's the enterprise customer data set, might be completely different to you and your business, and what's right for your business and versus another business similar to you, again, could be completely different. That's why it's going to be really important for each customer to understand, well, how's it going to help you and your organization accelerate what you want to do? Maybe that's sell more, maybe it's, improve certain things in the back ends, like processes or other things like that. So hopefully, these insights might change, is what I'm saying, based on different customers. And what we're going to say here is really that the guys at Planet, again, are going to do a great job in supporting you on that journey, on helping you understand this sort of like business case for you, what that return on that investment is going to look like. And again, I know James has got some really exciting news that he's dying to tell you guys about all of this. So we'll come back to that a bit later. So moving on, are you in the right place? So obviously you don't know. James tells me everybody's in the right place, but who knows? So who can actually get their hands on Microsoft 365 Copilot today? So it's quite simple. Some of the prereqs, you need to have a base license. So you still need to buy your Office productivity license. So on the screen here, if you're buying the annualized SKU, whether it's pay monthly, annual, as long as it's annualized, and again, Planet team here can tell you, what you're buying, and if you do want Copilot, you're not on the right SKUs, then again, they can help you here. But Microsoft 365 Business Standard and Microsoft 365 Business Premium is one of those base licenses. Also, Office 365 E3 and Office 365, or Microsoft 365 and Microsoft 365 E3 and E5. So those are the base SKUs. And if you're on one of those with annual plans, then you're eligible to buy Copilot from M365. There are a couple of other minimum requirements, though, and it's worth pointing out, is that really to get the most out of this, you do need to have the M365 apps for enterprise or apps for business deployed. The reason why that is because if you think about updates to your Office suite, you need to be on the regular release, taking those current updates. Because if I think back, 5-10 years or more now, can't remember when something like data loss AIP, presented itself to me when I was running certain projects. It's like, getting at lockstep with certain things back then presented and created problems. So I think this is why Microsoft is being really, really quite clear. You've got to be on M365 apps for enterprise or apps for business, and you've got to be on that monthly enterprise channel as well. So that's just going to make sure all these apps stay in sync, so that your Copilot and your Office apps, all the prompting type of thing just works, and you shouldn't get any problems. So those are the requirements, and I would say, first things you need to do is, again, here, reach out to the Planet team and just, check where you are, and hopefully you're on the right SKUs to take advantage of your Copilot. So I think next up, what I want to do is really get to the Copilot and do less talking, and maybe play a few little videos for you, and we'll move on from there. So let's introduce, first of all, though, before we do that one step, something called the Microsoft 365 Chat. So this is a service that has been out for a little while now. So you're probably already used to using chat-based type services. So the important thing to understand with M365 Chat here is that the information that you put into chat in some of these other chat services, again, are outside of your control. What you put in is on the public internet and could be used by that third party to do whatever they want to do with. Microsoft 365 Chat can be enabled within your tenant today. And just enabling it in your tenant today enables you to keep those chats private. So when you're on the internet doing these chats, all that information is then never shared outside of your Microsoft 365 tenant. So that's something really great. But also, is if you are going to use it, and if you're not thinking about going straight away into Copilot, maybe get used to M365 Chat. Again, speak to the team here. They can come configure it, turn it on, show you how to use it. It's really quite simple, to turn on. It's just a couple of buttons in the tenant in reality. I'm now going to play you a quick video, and over to you, James, to play the video, please. Okay, thanks. So a little bit of a teaser trailer from Microsoft there. So I'm showing you some of the things that you can do. Obviously, that was a quick blast through the types of things, but what we'll do is we'll break down that a little bit more in a minute with some other trailers that you can see about, the Office suite itself and how you might want to use Copilot inside the Office suite. So don't worry if you didn't pick up on all of those subliminal messages that Microsoft built into that video. Okay, so I think before we do that, let's probably have an important conversation, before we step forwards into Copilot itself. So I think, we've got these three different areas here on the screen to talk about, but let's just try and break it down even simpler. So we've seen already, you do need a base license, so you need to be on the right Office license suite. So, that's great. Hopefully, that's what we're calling foundational productivity. And what we can see realistically moving forwards is that people are concerned about AI, and to be honest, I'm pretty sure if we ask people to put their hands up, James, like, yeah, I see 50, 60% or more of hands being raised about, oh, is it going to like get rid of my job? Or, oh, there we go. So, yeah, okay. I think, the thing here is with Microsoft 365 Copilot, think of the modern work aspects, think of Office, yeah? All we're going to say about here with Copilot, it's not here to replace somebody. It's not a robot that's going to be all seeing and all knowing all everything. So anything you do with Copilot is going to come from you as a human to start with, in terms of you asking Copilot to do something or to build something or whatever the activity is. We'll show you more about that in a while. But at the end of the day, you're in control of this. You are in control of that destination. You're in control of that destination from what data you give it and it's allowed to use. You're also obviously in control of what you're asking it. And also you're in control of what it gives you, the feedback. If you don't like the information it's giving you back, great, go and ask it a different question. So think of it as that, I don't know, buddy next to you who is maybe the expert in the room. I'm certainly no expert in everything Microsoft Office. I'm more of an expert in Microsoft licensing, Azure, and other areas like that. So, if you were to ask me, oh, Steve, can you just go and build me a really smart presentation, like, to take out to a new customer I'm dealing with, maybe a proposal or something like that, and make it really smart. Yeah, it's going to take me, a bit of time to do all the type of smart graphics and get all that data together. And this is where foundational productivity is really going to help you improve that, because it's going to be just your buddies that are doing this stuff in the background for you, giving that information back to you, hopefully in a very timely, smart manner. Then you decide what you want to do next. AI and automation being the next thing to talk about. I think far too many people talk about automation in the same way they talk about AI. And Copilot isn't automation. It will automate things for you, but when I think about automation, it would be like, hey, James, can you write me a script to go in, I don't know, find all the, exchange online mailboxes? That's automation, or hey, do I want to deploy something into a customer's environment? I don't want to do it manually. I'll create a script. That's automation. AI is not automation. Yeah, AI is going to take your inputs, what you're asking it to do, and it will surface information back on what you've asked it. That isn't automation. It's not in the same spectrum. It is actually using other services behind the scenes to come and surface that back to you. And then finally, I want to talk about high performance organizations. For some years now, obviously, if you look at Gartner and Forrester and research companies like that, they talk about what is a high performance organization. Now, not every organization is going to be that interested in knowing what a high performance organization is, to be fair. But what I would say is just to bring it back one step, let's talk about like adoption here. So we know a service like ChatGPT, when that got launched, from the day it launched to acquiring 100 million users, it took just over 3 months. So that was really impressive for that service, because it's the right time, right place in the market, and people could see the value that it was going to present back to you. Now, when we think about a high performance organization could use something like a ChatGPT, or more importantly, use a Copilot, that's what we're here to talk about, is that this is really going to help you accelerate what you're doing, hopefully, whether it's in sales or in marketing or in IT or whatever function of the business it is, to do whatever those tasks are more quickly. So hence by, say if it's sales organization, we're thinking about here, it might mean to say you're able to surface something like a proposal to go out to your customers more quickly, rather than, gathering all this data manually and putting it all together and then, going through revisions of different things. This AI in the background, just ask it to do it, and then, go and review those results, go and make sure it's giving you the right information, and, all those type of things. So it's obviously, as I say, completely up to you. But we see this as quite foundational in the way in which businesses will start to work more and more. And I suppose those businesses who are, I don't know, embraced this like more modern technologies and modern services, they might seem to get more out of this, what we call green or, green shoots organizations, that type of thing, disruptors in the marketplace. But I'd say, maybe the first thing for anybody to is go and have a look, go and play with it, see how it maps into your business. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a while, about potential use cases and that type of thing. So next up, we're going to do a few demos. So I won't talk through Copilot in Excel. Let's have the experts do that. So I've got a pre-recording here. So James, do you want to take it away and play the recording, please?
Python in Excel brings the world of Excel and Python analytics together, and now Copilot is here to help you along the way. With the new PY function, you can use powerful Python libraries right within your Excel workbook to create compelling plots and visualizations, train machine learning models, and other advanced analytics. With Copilot, you don't need to be an expert. All you need are simple prompts. Want to estimate your future sales? Copilot can generate forecasts using one of the multiple Python libraries available through Python in Excel. You can then better understand and visualize the data by requesting a chart. With Copilot, you can create Python visualizations like multiplots to see how variables relate to each other, or use powerful data cleansing techniques such as regex to apply consistent formatting to your data, or apply machine learning models. Copilot brings the rich capabilities of Python in Excel to your fingertips.
So, yeah, thanks. So as you can see there, just Excel, I mean, if you asked me to go and create some smart graphics in Excel, I would probably be here next week. I'm no wizard. I could probably present you the data, but in a very cool format. But as you can see there, could be a great aid for sales teams and for anybody who's doing some, data sort of analysis and that type of thing. And yeah, whether it's budgeting, forecasts, or anything else like that, great tool there to have. So if we roll on, let's have a look at PowerPoint, if we may.
Now let's say you're getting ready for your customer pitch meeting. Everyone has had a moment when they wish they could turn their proposal into a customer-ready presentation without having to start from scratch. Well, guess what? Now you can. Using just your own words, Copilot can translate Word into PowerPoint, and it can also translate PowerPoint into a Word document. Now you have a professional-looking presentation that you can hone and polish. Let's say you want to add a slide. Give Copilot some quick instructions. There it goes, ready for you to review. So this slide is too wordy. Let's ask Copilot to make it more visual. I'll give it a few seconds. And check this out, Copilot can even animate the slide. It gives it a professional design treatment in a single click. But it doesn't stop there. Copilot can even generate speaker notes. No, I'm serious, speaker notes. It's not only a time saver, it's helping me be a better presenter and close this deal.
Cool. So I could think of many use cases there. I don't know about you, James, but yeah, the amount of times I've had to do proposals and am I allowed to use this image, that image? So you could have your corporate images, which Copilot can work with as well. So, it works with all those if you've got stock images or if you want it to go and use public stuff. And say the great thing there is don't like it, ask it to redo it. I don't like that slide, fine. Change the notes on it. Brilliant. So I think James can talk to you about how beneficial it has been. So I know James has been playing with this in the background. So okay, let's dovetail in, if we may. There's a few more videos I think it'd be worth just sharing with the audience here. So let's have a look at Word if we can, James.
When you've written a paragraph in shorthand, you can highlight it and click Rewrite. Copilot then offers several alternate options to choose from that are all written professionally. And it can translate wordy or complex paragraphs into digestible visualized tables. You can even use Copilot to add a column with extra data, which it can complete automatically. Copilot also makes you the expert on any document. Simply ask a question about the content, and Copilot will provide a concise response.
Cool, brilliant. Should we cover the other couple of topics? I think Outlook and Teams, they dovetail really in together, and I think they're an important conversation point. So, okay.
Copilot in Outlook can help you prioritize your time and stay on top of meetings. Here you've been invited to a meeting that conflicts with a meeting you're planning to attend. Clearly, you can only attend one. From the meeting invite, you can choose to RSVP with Follow. Switching over to your calendar, you can see that you're now following this meeting. Once the meeting starts on Teams, the organizer will receive a notification to record the meeting because someone is following it. Now, after the meeting is done and the recording is ready, Copilot will notify you that the meeting recap is ready for you to review. You can then ask Copilot some questions about the meeting, like, summarize this meeting, or are there any action items for me? That way you can stay on top of things as if you were present during the meeting. Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can opt to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarize notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot clarifying questions, and it provides a detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made, and gives you helpful context. You can even ask Copilot what other solutions were considered, and it provides citations from the transcript so you can see where Copilot drew these conclusions. It's a huge time saver. So that was pretty cool. But the real magic of Copilot happens during a live meeting. Let's say you're in a meeting with your team. You can ask Copilot to summarize the meeting so far. You can see how it summarizes who said what points were made, and it's really capturing the spirit of the discussion. And as the meeting progresses, you can check in on where people stand. You can even ask Copilot what questions are unresolved. It's just amazing to see this happen in real time during a meeting.
Cool, brilliant. Okay, so I think we've heard how Copilot can work with the Office suite. Obviously, the more we know about different organizations and how you might use it in your organization, it might be completely different to a different organization. So I think what we've shown you here is just like the 1% of what it can possibly do. And I think as we learn more, do more, experience more over the coming months, years, it's going to become a much more powerful tool that you can leverage. There is probably one other announcement I'm going to make before we just jump onto security, and that is something called Copilot Lab. So Copilot Lab, what this is, if we think about learning a new language, so what this, say, you want to learn French or something, Copilot is exactly the same as that. So the way in which you ask Copilot a question today, you could improve that prompting. You could improve those responses you're going to get by asking a different style, flavor of question. So this is what Copilot Lab is going to do for you. So it's going to be included within M365 Copilot, and it's going to be that test ground for you to go, hey, look, how can I improve the questions I'm asking Copilot? So that's going to be included. That is actually in preview today, which is why I'm not playing the video. Okay, but moving on, I think the probably most important topic is to really share with you about how data security is going to work. So I think rather than me talking you through everything, and if you're not used to security within M365, I think this video does a really good job of explaining it. Okay.
Microsoft 365 Copilot works with the data security controls you have in place for file access, labeling, classification, and data loss prevention. Mario Rogers works for Violet Martinez, and both are on the same team at Contoso. Mario and Violet are also members in the same group working on Project Falcon. Now we'll start with Violet, who's been working with the procurement and contract management teams to sell their partner ReliCloud 1,500 Mark 8 quadcopters. And you can see the file is labeled highly confidential with restricted access, and it describes all the terms in the purchase agreement. Because Violet has access to the file, she's able to search for and find it in SharePoint and Microsoft365.com. And of course, Violet can also navigate to the file's location in the Agreements folder of the project site to find the purchase agreement. So now let's look at Mario's experience. Even though he's on the same team and working on Project Falcon with Violet, if Mario tries to search for the Contoso purchase agreement, he won't find it. And there are a few purchasing documents that he does find without sensitive information, but not the one that Violet's working on. And if Mario knows the location of the purchase agreement and tries to navigate to it directly, it just appears as an empty folder to him. And when Mario launches Word on the web and creates a blank document, then prompts Microsoft 365 Copilot to summarize the Contoso purchase agreement as a reference file, because Microsoft 365 Copilot respects the file permissions of its user, Copilot also cannot access the purchase agreement. Now, if we switch back to Violet's screen, because she has permission to access the purchase agreement, she can use Microsoft 365 Copilot to summarize the file. And after a moment, you'll see it created a summary of the purchase agreement, and Violet decides to keep it. Then, data security controls for Microsoft Purview discover sensitive information found in the Microsoft 365 Copilot generated content. The document is automatically labeled as highly confidential, and policies are enforced to restrict access to the document.
Okay, so I think that gives a good insight into good practice, of working with your data inside of Office 365 tenant. Now, I know probably today not everybody is in that same place of maybe having data loss processes or governance and compliance controls mapped in, but I think what you're going to see, and this is a bit of a outside of the Copilot conversation today, I've been involved in a lot of meetings, webinars recently where I've been working with insurance and cyber underwriters. What they're doing is they're starting to double down on these policies, because they see organizations need to take more control of their data. And realistically, what we've got here within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem is the ability for you to decide what's important to you, how do you want to lock it down. And with all these processes, it does help with your cybersecurity, underwriting your insurance. So I'm seeing that from several companies nowadays, saying that if you do implement these good practices and good controls, then it will help you reduce your insurance to them. So I think as much as anything else, there's a good reason there for that purpose. And also remember, if it's about personal information in the UK and things like that, then obviously there's the Information Commissioner's Office as well. So if there is a data breach, obviously you're probably aware of the type of fines that can be levied and what your responsibilities are back to the ICO, especially around these sensitive information types. So whether you go into Copilot or no, it's probably good practice anyway, I'm saying, is to look at your data, look at the governance around it, and make sure those controls are in place. Okay. So I think we also can announce Copilot Studio as well. So this isn't bundled as part of the Copilot licensing that we're talking about today. This is something separate as an add-on. But what I'm seeing in the industry overall is that more and more organizations are starting to say, for example, you've got an ERP or a CRM or some sales database or something like that. And then you've maybe got a separate finance, system, and maybe there's, several other IT control management systems or things like that. So these business apps. What I'm seeing today already is that when we're talking about this, sort of like modern AI organization, is they're starting to leverage the power of AI and Copilots to make one app talk to another app. And I say, in my mind, that's really cool because, hopefully it's going to improve your response to, whether it's a customer requirement or something you're doing internally. But I am seeing already, a massive change within the software vendors and what we call, in my language, ISVs, so people who create software, to work with Copilot to interact with these other systems. So what Copilot Studio is going to give you the ability to do, if you're interested in this down the road, is for you to be able to work with a developer to build that integration between Copilot and other applications. So I think that's, really quite clear what that future-looking organization might look like. But obviously, not everybody is going to be in the right place today. So I think understanding Copilot might be the first step, and then maybe, with data and security side of them, when, your customers are ready, James, it's then maybe look at Copilot Studio and see how that integration might benefit a customer going forwards. So I can see James busily typing away, answering questions, I think. So I'm going to roll on, James, if we can, to the next one. Okay. Oh, interesting. I may as well let this just play out a second. Oh, no, there we go. Thank you. So I think an interesting thing to consider for anybody who's thinking about buying Copilot, and my advice is to really break it down to understand your business or organization and how it can really benefit you. So I'm just going to take you through one or two examples. Hopefully we haven't run out of time, James. Oh, gameplay. It's all right. Okay. So yeah, if you roll on a slide or two. So when I think about any business, what you've got is different personas or different teams of users, different groups of users. Okay, so obviously different groups of users do different functions within the business. So I think it's really important to understand what those functions are that type of persona is doing. So as this slide shows here, someone maybe who's doing sales will do these typical activities. So I think my first call to action to anybody who doesn't already know how something like Copilot could fit in their organization is maybe do this type of exercise. Maybe think about these groups of users and how it's going to help that specific user group. That way, it's more of a simple conversation when it comes down to, can I have 3 of these or 1 of those or whatever the maths work out at. So once you do that little exercise of understand what they do, because you can then more clearly probably articulate back to the business after you do this exercise what the real benefit is back to them. Because I'm going to pass over to James in a minute. He's going to tell you about pricing and things like that. But for example, if I was to say, so in my job role, what I do is talk a lot about licensing and technology and things like that. How could Copilot help me? Well, it can help me in many different ways, so I don't necessarily do prospecting lead gen, but what I do is create presentations, create lots of content, and that type of thing. And so for me, mapping out those tasks and if I take more than, I don't know, to give an example here, if I'm doing something for more than half an hour, even a day or an hour or more a week, then if that task is what I call more of a process or a cognitive style task, then I would probably consider using Copilot to do that for me, or with me, I should say, because then you've got, for example, I'm going to ask Copilot a question to do ABC, and that's going to give me potentially, 50 minutes back in that hour. And if I'm doing lots of different tasks like that, I could gain hours and hours and hours worth back of time per day, per week, per month, even more. And it only takes, for example, if you compare salaries and how much someone gets paid, even a standard minimum wage salary, what that return on that investment looks like, I would still be considering using something like Copilot, even if I was going to save 2-3 hours a month, even because of that value it's going to give me back. So anyway, that's a bit of a tip, and I think what best for me to do is hand the reins back to our host James here. And if you do have questions, I'll try and answer some. If not, we'll get back to you after the session.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for that. I'm just going to jump in now and talk for a little bit about, I suppose, the question that everyone's asking, which is, how much is this going to cost me? And what am I getting for that, right? So as Stephen's mentioned, there's a number of licenses. I'm just going to roll this slide out because I think it's important to show it all. So essentially, at the moment, there's 4 flavors of Copilot that you can buy. And I suppose it's important to highlight that all the features that Stephen's shown you sit in that top line, that Microsoft Copilot for 365. And as per Tom's question that came through in the chat, which I was busily trying to type answers to, it is an upfront purchase of a per user license, which at list price is £296.40 per year. So if you did want to buy that for your organisation, for every user who wants it, it is that £296 upfront. Now that is list price. Obviously, speak to your Planet IT account manager, and they will do what they can to apply whatever discounts they can apply for you. But that's the list price. That's why it's easier to show you on this slide. Beneath that, the 3 other ones are slightly different. So we mentioned Copilot Studio in brief. Now this has a £164 per month price, and that's a tenant price. So you pay for that once, and then you use the bottom license, which is free, the user license, to gain access to Copilot Studio. Now I need to highlight at the moment that the Copilot Studio user license is free. It doesn't mean it's going to be free forever. That's just where they're at the moment with it. So just be aware of that. And obviously that Copilot Studio license is per tenant. And if you were to remove that, everyone who has access to all of the features you've built inside the studio would be lost. The third one down, the Microsoft Sales Copilot for Faculty, that is for any of you that are using the features of Dynamics 365 and using specifically Dynamics Sales. The Sales Copilot feature, that is an add-on per user per month that gives you Copilot features inside of that. So I suppose, as Stephen's mentioned, there's a number of things, right, that you need to do to get ready for Copilot. There's quite a steep climb to make sure that all of your data is in place and that you have everything that you need, all the data security, all the permissions are in place. And we're very aware of that. So what we've done at Planet is we've put together a package that we're calling the Copilot Readiness Assessment. And this essentially is a review of your 365 environment as it sits today, and essentially gives you the understanding of not only what data is in your 365 that each user will have access to, but what risks you have. Make sure that any settings that need to be applied for enabling Copilot both for 365 chat and for Copilot 365 are enabled and done correctly, making sure that the right users have the license allocated and that it's working correctly, make sure that you've got a complete overview of the data security, and also give you the kind of recommendations and next step. And that may be, as someone's put in the chat, we're currently using F3 or F5 for a number of our users, so therefore we know we can't get access to it, and we'll give you some guidance around maybe how you can change your package to make that more appropriate. So this is something that we're launching today off the back of this webinar, and for those of you who are attending, that is a reduced to £395 that assessment, and that's a half a day assessment. I have to say we do have limited availability. The reason I have to say that is because we are aware that this is going to be very popular, and that there's going to be a lead time for this very shortly after we launch this. But if you want to get a Copilot readiness assessment completed, then speak to your Planet IT account manager. If you don't have one, you can reach out to me via my email address, via LinkedIn, via Teams, or however you want to reach out to me, and I'll help you find someone that can guide you through that. But it's going to be very beneficial for those organizations that don't really know if the data they have in 365 is ready to be used by Copilot. Because remember, if the permissions are wrong, it will surface data that users should not be showing. And Copilot is very good at finding data you weren't aware you had access to if you ask it the right things. Alongside that, I suppose, the thing that we've always done is what we refer to as a 365 health check. And that is a complete top-down overview of your Microsoft 365 environment, completed by one of our Planet IT professionals, to give you not only an overview of kind of your licensing, your security, your governance, but really make sure that you're making the most out of 365. I have to say the security review does not include Copilot, because this health check was written before Copilot was a thing, but I've put that on there just to be clear. But this is a great place to start from if you're not really sure where your 365 sits at the moment. And the good news is, for all of those of you who have attended today, we're actually giving this away for free. So all you need to do is reach out to your Planet IT account manager, and they will book this review in with one of our technical professionals, and we will deliver this review for you to show you essentially where your 365 sits at the moment. A great place to start if you're not sure if your licenses will facilitate Copilot, or whether you need to change bundles and stuff like that. Ultimately it's a freebie. I like to give away a freebie, so reach out and make the most of that, and we'll do what we can on that. That literally to time brings us to the end of this whistle-stop tour of Copilot. I'm aware there's been a number of messages in the chat and in the Q&As. Any data that we can give you to back up the questions and stuff you've put in the Q&A, we'll share with the recording and all the other pieces that come with this. We'll also send out the information around both the health check and the Copilot readiness assessment following today's webinar as a follow-up email that will normally take about 24 hours. So if you want to, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in there. Both myself and Stephen will stay on the stream for a little while, just so we can answer any questions. But if not, it goes without saying, but thank you very much for attending and giving up an hour of your day today. And we look forward to speaking to you. And I say the Planet IT team are here to help you if you do have questions around Copilot. They are hopefully all sat at their desk listening to this, ready to jump on any calls that you put into them, so you can test that theory right now. But thank you very much and have a good day.